Everybody keeps talking about the new documentary on Netflix about Amy Bradley. Now, I'm in the middle of watching this right now because I am very familiar with this case. Her parents and advocates around the world have been calling for an alert placed on all cruise ships in the event that somebody comes up missing, called the Amy Alert. And it's actually a fantastic idea. The fact that somebody has to come up deceased or missing for something like this to even be put in place is backwards to me, but what do I know? In 1998, in the 10th season of Unsolved Mysteries, there was an episode that ran about this exact case, Amy Bradley. And this is the original Unsolved Mysteries. If you didn't know, Netflix also revived Unsolved Mysteries with their own new Unsolved Mysteries. So this is in reference to an episode that ran with the original show. This is how I became familiar with the Amy Bradley disappearance, because of the show Disappeared, which has over 11 seasons now. And they also had a 12th unofficial season that had specials about certain cases, like an update on them or other ones that have come up that weren't a part of a full season. In 2018, that episode aired. And I am very familiar with the show Disappeared and the other show that's kind of like it called Vanished, about people that just disappeared, vanished without a trace. The Netflix revive of Unsolved Mysteries had an episode about a little boy who had been in the custody of his father and ended up disappeared. And what's crazy about this is that even though this was in 2017 and this took place in Georgia, on March 6th of 2025, that little boy at 15 years old was found in Colorado with his biological mother, who had been suspected of taking him the whole time. This is the importance of education, advocacy, awareness, speaking on not just true crime, but speaking on missing people, missing children, and bringing attention to it. There is almost 17,000 missing, disappeared people in the United States right now. We may have 340 million US citizens, but that is a lot of people. A lot of people that are just missing. And that number doesn't account for or reflect how many people are missing that have not been reported statistically. In the United States, there is 346,000 unsolved homicides. And this comes directly from the Murder Accountability Project with the FBI. This is from the FBI's Uniform Crime Report data. Another big case was the case of Natalie Holloway. Of course, this went global around the world in 2005. And the reason why was because Natalie Holloway was only 18 years old, graduating from high school. And this trip was with other students to Aruba to celebrate their graduating. Of course, her family, including her mother, has never stopped fighting for her. And we all know what happened because Johan Vandersloot is the perpetrator of that crime. And he has recently come forward and said exactly what happened. Because 5 years after Natalie Holloway, he was in Peru and he also took the life of another woman named Stephanie Flores. He also tried to extort thousands of dollars from Natalie Holloway's mother. And of course, that ended up getting him in legal trouble where the FBI could legally do something as far as extraditing him. Because there was his whole charges in Peru also for Stephanie Flores. And with this being an international thing with 3 different countries plus his natural born citizenship, we have learned from his own words that he tried to SA her and she ended up kicking him. He got mad. He ended up obstructing her airway and just putting her body out in the ocean. Very easy way for somebody to dispose of a body. The ocean. not only is it very difficult to locate a body in the ocean, but you also have to consider whether or not it's in the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, if it's around an island, all of that. But this is a convenient way for offenders and perpetrators to dispose of a body right away, because likely it won't be found, or it's going to drift off, or it's, unfortunately, not to sound grotesque, it's going to decompose, or it's going to be left to the elements of the life that is in the ocean, if you get what I mean. Now, I just had a spine surgery done on the 14th. I'm having the second one tomorrow because I had a nerve stimulator put in my spine. I'm having the permanent battery put in tomorrow. But I am going to come back and I am going to talk about this case a little bit deeper in the documentary and what I thought about the documentary. But I am currently in the middle of watching it. However, as I said, I'm very familiar with this case because I remember all of the media and the Disappeared episode about it. But if you want to watch that episode on Disappeared, it's season 9, episode 3, entitled Troubled Waters. This is the thumbnail for said episode. But there are some really great videos on YouTube in the last 7-8 years about this case. So if you ever want to go down the rabbit hole. You're going to find a lot of really good ones. Of course, you got to take into consideration that these are people's opinions based on what they know. So as you can see, this case had gotten a lot of attention since it happened. I'm not surprised that Netflix decided to pick it up and do a formal documentary about it, especially with her brother being older now. And regarding the brother, there's a lot of suspicion there because she wasn't even supposed to be on this cruise ship. However, it was all expenses paid. Her mom, her dad, her brother. She decided to come along and spend some family time with her family. In this clip, the mother of Amy Bradley says that the captain came to her and told her that they have searched every single nook and cranny on the cruise ship and they did not find Amy anywhere. Now, I haven't formed my full and conclusive thoughts, feelings, opinions, or theory on what happened to Amy Bradley yet. And while conspiracies are fun, I toss them around in my head all the time. I always remember Occam's razor. It is a principle, a problem-solving principle that suggests that when you are competing hypotheses in your mind or with another person, the simplest and most logical explanation is usually, by probability, the best one. And I know conspiracy theorists do not like hearing that, but that's by probability. Usually what happens is the most simple or the most likely, the most logical. So I always like to keep this in mind. How can 3,000 people, 5,000 people on a cruise ship, which is contained, how can one person's body just be gone? The person disappeared. Can't find them anywhere. Checked every nook and cranny. Well, the easiest, the most logical explanation is that her body was no longer on the ship to therefore find it in any nook or cranny, including other passengers' luggages. So where could or where would a body go? Out in the middle of the ocean, where is the logical place that a body could go and just disappear? But it is suspicious because you have to look at the last person that saw her alive, and that was her brother. Why would she be on the balcony? What did she do? Did she go back out of the room to go get something to eat or drink or whatever? Go hang out or talk to other people, even though it's the middle of the night? Did she have an accident and just fall off the balcony and her cigarettes and lighter went with her? It's more likely somebody did this.